Hi, and welcome back to the Trends in Teens podcast. I'm Erin, and I'm here with my co-host, Caitlin. And honestly, I came to Remedy Live because I'm a concerned mom, and I wanted to help parents tackle this conversation about how to safely navigate through all the decisions involved with technology.
Mm-hmm. And here at Remedy Live, we value technology. We don't want to scare people away from it. We don't want to tell people, don't get your kids a phone. It's so dangerous. It's evil. Yeah. We love utilizing technology in healthy ways, and we want to equip families to prepare their kids so that they make successful choices as teenagers, as future adults, and that they're able to use technology in a healthy way and in a way that just encourages life and growth and positive things instead of all the bullying that we see online these days.
Yeah. And today I'm really excited because we're going to dive into the topic of, okay, so you got your kids a phone or a device, now what? And what I think is so valuable about this conversation is I honestly think that there's a lot of people out there, moms and dads, grandparents, just caregivers in general, that aren't really aware of all the things that devices can do. I say device because it's not just cell phones as much as, that's a thing that's happening a lot more as the kids get older. The devices that we're giving, even younger kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, a Kindle or an iPhone, iPad. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. They can do some of these same things. And we made a list and we wanted to go through them. One of the things that most people know now is that with most of these devices, you can download apps. They can be anywhere from game apps to any kind of social media app, but that's a way that you get the games on these devices. Mm-hmm. Another thing that most of these devices can do now is you get on the internet. And what that can be great for is helping with homework, looking up the greatest Lego creations. I know we've done that in the past. It also gives you full-on access to pornography and all of the other many dangers that the internet has to offer. I've heard of the internet being called something similar to a 6-lane highway going right through the middle of your house. And I like that because if there was a 6-lane highway going through the middle of your house, you would protect your kids from that. It's the exact same thing when it comes to the internet. So just knowing if your device does that. And another thing is in-app purchases. What's important about in-app purchases is oftentimes it's real money that's involved. And we've all heard the story of the mom and dad who get a credit card statement for thousands of dollars, and they had no clue that their kid was even doing that. Especially you see this when it's younger kids who maybe don't read. And, a game will say, do you want this many more tokens? And, of course, every kid's like, yes, I do. And yes, I will. And if you have it set up that way, it's just a really easy way that real money can get involved.
Yeah. Taking that a step further, like you were saying, every one of these devices with internet now gives you then access to Netflix, to movies, to YouTube. There are so many video things out there, basically TV stations that are online. And if your device can go online, your kids can now watch those. And even those programs have child safety protection within them. But if you don't know they can access them, you have no clue what they're able to watch or what could come across their field of vision that they weren't prepared for. Location services, that's a big one. I've seen this on national news over and over again of, did you know your phone is tracking your location? Did you know this app sees everywhere you go? People crazy. Are shocked by it, but the default setting on devices, whether it be a phone or a tablet, is for location services to be on, for these things to be tracking you and everything you do, not just your location, but just recording your history of where you've been, what sites you've looked at. And then, of course, there's live pictures on iPhones. A lot of people might not understand how this can be scary or dangerous. It's mostly the Apple devices that I know this is on. Yeah. But if you have live feature mode on for your photos, it takes a 1.5 second picture. It's really a video. It's a 1.5 second video. And those girls in their bathroom selfies, they might not be fully dressed and they think, oh, I'm just taking a picture of my face. But that 1.5 seconds of you lifting the phone, they're going to see everything the phone sees, and that can be posted.
Yeah.
And that can be shared, and they might not realize it's live. So that is one of the dangers out there with these devices.
Caitlin, that was even something I had not ever thought of before. You mentioned that to me in the past, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's something I just had never even thought of.
You almost want to double check every picture you've taken to say, what all is in that video? Like, what's being said in the background?
Right.
You know?
And because if you forward a live picture to somebody else, if they then hold down on that picture, it will show them the whole video. It's not just, the actual picture.
Yes. Yep.
That one is a huge one that I was not even thinking about. So I'm glad we brought attention to that. And I'm sure I'm not the only mom that wasn't thinking about that. Other things that are on your kid's device are things like messaging that can be deleted, but that include pictures and videos. A lot of kids are very tech savvy, and they know how to delete any text messages, any pictures, so that it doesn't look like it was received or sent. And knowing that that's a possibility is just another step in being more aware. And maybe that was something you didn't know. Along those same lines, are you aware that there are certain apps that are made to hide other apps? A great example of this is, I'm not going to say maybe the exact name of it, but there's a calculator app out there. And so it looks, well, sure, why wouldn't I want to get, and I'm not saying it's the calculator that comes on your device. There's a lot of, at least Apple products that just have a natural calculator on them. I'm not saying it's that one. I'm saying that there is another app that you can download, and it specifically is there as a ruse. It
looks like a game, but really it's that scientific calculator your kid isn't supposed to be using during their test. But they've got the phone on the side, and they're putting in that equation.
Oh, there you go.
That's how I would imagine using it. But.
Yeah, and it's not even that. It will hide other apps inside it.
So the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a child and you specifically told them no Musical.ly, and they have Musical.ly, they can then go and hide Musical.ly inside their calculator app. So as a parent, if you're not aware of that, you look and you think, calculator, I'm not opening that up. That's
I'm browsing
harmless.
the apps. Okay, it's not on there. They're listening.
It's not on there. It's fine. Yes, but the kids have hidden it inside. So
wow.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's quite fascinating.
And you would think no kid's going to go to this effort to look up an app to hide another app. Oh, they do. They've got the time. They're not busy like we are. I mean, and this is their priority. I mean, that sounds devious and, like, oh, my kid's good. They wouldn't do that. But if all their friends are doing it, that peer pressure is so difficult. I don't know how easy it is for people to think back to their younger days and their high school days, but that peer pressure is hard. It really is.
Well, and I would even say, if you're thinking back to those times when you're in high school and middle school, can you give yourself an example of something that you did that you would not have wanted your parents to find out about? I'm going to guess that's the answer. And now it's just on a bigger scale with what to me feels like much heavier consequences.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we all go through that, we all did go through that a little bit.
Yes.
So just not saying that every kid does this, but it's a possibility, and we need to get the word out that it is a possibility.
Yeah. Well, and you were telling me the other day about apps that are messaging apps, but you want to expect messages to be there. Tell me about that a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, so are you talking about like Minecraft and...
Yeah, the apps that contain messaging that you want to expect. Like, it's not just a text message.
Yeah, well, a lot of gaming apps actually have texting or messaging capabilities. So I think what you're referring to is there was a moment where I was a little hooked on Words with Friends. I'm just going to say that. I go through phases with that one. It's fun because it's challenging, right?
It's
and
like
you feel
Scrabble,
like
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but I would sometimes just be matched up with like a random stranger to play. And normally that's fine. I don't have my picture on there. I felt like it was relatively safe. But I got on Words with Friends, and sure enough, I got a message from somebody in Words with Friends, and it was totally inappropriate. It was a man that had kind of disgusting language. And I immediately deleted that game. And then shortly after said, it's not even worth it. I don't want to have that out there. But that was what I would consider a safe game. And all it would have taken is for me to go, I'm interested in this. Let me look into it. Or it's harmless, right? And who knows where that could have gone.
Or a naive young kid to say, who are you? And the conversation gets started.
The conversation gets started. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I know that we have a lot of stories like this in our chat. FaceTime is very popular. For those of you new to the technology world, it's like Skype, or it's basically video phone calls. So everything we just listed is out there, and it's scary. And any device with the internet has these capabilities. And it's so crazy to me to hear the stories we get in the chat. People struggle getting off their devices because they're so addicted to all these different apps and all these different communication tools within their device. Phones, of course, being number one in that area. But the anxiety they feel if their phone is taken away or they're told they can't use their phone, our kids talk about the physical and mental and emotional anxiety that hits them with not being able to stay connected. I know adults are feeling that these days too, because they've become so addicted to their device, but they don't have anyone telling them you have to put it away now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at work, if they get in trouble for sitting on their phone too long and their computer falls asleep, then someone's going to notice. But it's just crazy to hear the stories with FaceTime, especially. We have students who say, well, I fell asleep with my boyfriend. And we're like, oh, did he sneak in the window? Like, how'd he get to your house? Well, no, we were FaceTiming. And they will just keep the video phone call up, and they both fall asleep at night talking to one another or watching each other sleep because it's romantic and just such a beautiful moment to fall asleep together in high school. But they're not physically together. It's all via a video app, a video phone call.
Yeah.
You mentioned, of girls who get ready in the mornings together before school, and they call each other. It's a video call. They set up their phone and they just talk and get ready together.
Yeah, it was a really big shock to me because, back in my day, we would call each other, and we would talk, and it was, we always laugh because for us, I was born in the time where we didn't have even like cordless phones. So that cord stretched all the way. The kitchen cord was just like so stretched out because it had to go all the way to the top of the basement steps where I could shut the door and feel like I had a little bit of privacy. But now it's, it's this other way of connection. So FaceTime calls, where it's audio and video, are kind of the replacement of the phone calls that we used to do. And like you said, it gives them this kind of false sense of intimacy. And, even just when you had kind of mentioned that boyfriend and girlfriend kind of fall asleep kind of staring at it, that was like, what? I was like, just so surprised.
Crazy and, well, that's not real. But to them, that's the next step. It's an emotional fulfillment.
Yeah.
And obviously text messaging and sexting is huge in relationships now. We have the Get School tour where we go to schools and we poll them, and it's interactive with what they feel is okay and what kind of struggles people are facing. And it's crazy to see the numbers of kids that believe it's okay to sext and believe it's okay to send nude photos. And this is just another way of having that emotional intimacy in a relationship, is the video chatting and the video calls and falling asleep together. Yeah.
And Caitlin, just because you mentioned it, I want to just put it out there because I think that there are maybe people who go, what does it actually mean when you say sext somebody? So it's like a sexual text.
Yes.
And it can be with videos, pictures, or just almost pornographic language.
Yes.
Is that what you would say?
It would. I don't want to give examples, but typically I will just say it starts with someone saying, what would you want to do to me?
Okay.
I think that's like the key phrase with sexting that most people know. And it goes from there. Like, oh, I wish we were together right now. Why? What would you want to do?
Okay.
And then it's a descriptive language of that. Exactly what you said. Yeah.
Okay. But it also feels like it involves that level of intimacy that so many kids are craving.
Yeah.
But in a safe, quote unquote, safe way.
It's safe because my phone is the barrier.
Right.
When really that phone has become a gateway. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I remember, and this is a crazy old story, but when I was in high school, I don't even remember the topic for papers, but I had a friend write a paper on what to do instead of sex. And it was all these things that I would very strongly argue would lead to sex for teenagers. And sexting was one of them. Like,
Okay.
if you are struggling with sex and you really want to do it with your boyfriend, but you shouldn't, sext instead. And really, that feels like the opposite direction of what you want to do.
Sure.
That's going to push you towards that even more because it's going to be on your mind. You're going to be doing it all the time. We're going down a whole nother avenue about relationships.
I'm such a mom. I'm like, take up needlepoint. Why don't you take up needlepoint? That would be a really great thing.
Let's embroider. Yeah.
Let's just embroider. Yeah.
Well, let's get back on track. We will have another episode about relationships.
Yes.
But all this to say, technology can be very dangerous and it can be used in ways that it was not intended. And of course, people are creating that intention now. But it is so important to protect from the bad things that can happen with technology. Now, I do want to point out when you mentioned that girls get ready together and FaceTime and do video conferencing, I thought, how cool would it be if there's like 5 girls, because you can do multiple people in a video chat.
Yeah.
5 girls got together, and while they were getting together in the mornings, they were doing devotionals together or talking about their
Caitlin,
day
I love
and being
that.
encouraging. Like that sounds so fun to me.
You look so cute today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, girls, should I curl my hair? You curl that hair. How do you do it? And they're learning from each other.
Yes, I love that.
It can be used in so many good ways too. So not everything we've listed is bad. Like there's so many cool ways you can do it. And it's amazing. But there are also ways that I think kids have to be protected.
Yeah.
Kids, teenagers, even adults need this protection when it comes to devices as a way to self-regulate, their usage and their screen time. But you have this amazing analogy I want you to tell us about when it comes to protecting your family.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this analogy because I've been trying to figure out how do I express that you can't just do one thing and expect for that to be, the end all be all. My kids are safe. Everything's good. Right. And so I just was given this kind of just idea of your family, your kids, technology, all of that is like a castle. Okay, so if you just go with me here for a little bit and, picture a castle in your mind. Oftentimes a castle has, oftentimes it's on a hill. And oftentimes there's a moat around it. Oftentimes there's a drawbridge. Many of the castles, when they were actually being lived in and used as an actual castle instead of a place to go tour, had archers, different people kind of, on the watchtowers looking. And so I thought that was such a good just analogy and on the way that we can protect our kids. So we wanted to kind of dive into that. So your kids, your family are in this castle, okay? And as the king and the queen, let's just say mom and dad, I know it's not always a king and a queen. Sometimes it's just a king. Sometimes it's just a queen. But let's just, for the sake of the analogy, let's just say king and queen are living in the castle. And the first line of defense is that they are on a hill, right? In this castle. So what the hill really looks like when it comes to technology is that the king and the queen, they're having conversations with everyone in their castle. They are having just open dialogue about that. And Caitlin, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the parent-child contract because you've explained that so well.
Well, and it's so funny. I'm not a mom. I'm not a parent. So when I first heard about these people doing phone contracts with their kids, it blew me away. It was such a revolutionary idea to me because I would never have thought of this on my own. So I love it. But the idea is it's not a phone contract with your carrier. It is specifically a contract that a parent and kid write up together. You can be that dictator king or queen and write it up yourself, and that's okay too. But it's a contract to say you're getting a device, you're getting a phone specifically, usually. Here are the rules that go with that. And here are the consequences,
I love that.
Good and bad consequences for that phone. I had a student I worked with a couple of months ago who was telling me about his contract growing up. And they didn't have a written contract, but for them, it was a verbal contract of if you get a phone every night at this time, like at 7 o'clock or something, it went in a basket. And that basket would go in mom and dad's room That way everyone knew you don't get your phones at night. And he said he had so many friends. And I love this because it's a guy too. It's not just a girl. You always hear girls being so addicted to their social media and their phones. But this guy said, I had so many friends who didn't sleep at night because they were so distracted by their phones. He said, I did so well in school because I didn't have that there to distract me. And he said, yeah, I'd be angry sometimes, like, oh, but I'm in the middle of this game, with a friend on my phone or I'm texting. But he knew the rules, and he knew if he got upset because it was being taken away, it's his own fault for starting a conversation so late or starting something that he knew would tamper with that rule.
Right.
But this phone contract, I love the idea of it being an actual written contract for parents and kids to sign it. There's something so strong about putting your actual signature on something.
Mm-hmm.
But for this contract to really lay out what the rules look like for your castle, for your home, of having that device. Now, if you're brand new to this idea like I am, you might be like, well, what do I put on there? Like, you'll put your phone away at this time. Like, yeah, that's a great start. But it's also what privacy stuff is allowed and isn't allowed. Will you make it a rule that you're allowed to check your kid's phone at any time, no matter what?
Mm-hmm.
I know some families where they're like, well, they have a phone. They know what apps they are and are not allowed to check, but they get so mad if I say, can I see your phone? They want to know why. What am I going to look for? What am I going to do on their phone?
Mm-hmm.
And there might not be anything to hide, but that defensiveness is there. For some reason, it is there. And I believe it's all a very medical, psychological aspect of the brain, but kids get so defensive about the idea of someone looking into their business on their phone. So to set that up in your contract, I feel like is very important. Are you going to have the rule that you're able to check the phones and make sure they don't have apps that they're not supposed to have, that you're allowed to read those text messages?
Right. And it's a life skill that I think kids that are tweens, that are teens, that will eventually become adults, they need to learn about that trust bank. I know that is something you maybe have heard before, but that trust bank of, okay, we both signed this contract. And so I'm going to check your phone and I'm going to see that you're following through. That just put a deposit in that trust bank. And maybe that means I won't feel like I need to check it so much so much more down the road or as often down the road. But it's because you've proven to me that you are able to follow through on these guidelines that we both set up. And I think it's just even important to say, for example, what do I do? My kid's already had a phone for a year.
Yeah.
If you like the sound of the parent contract and you are late to the game and having the conversation, that's okay. It's all right.
There's nothing to say you can't go still do this and you can't still set some rules for a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And they might not like it, but that's okay. That's all right. And that if it's protecting them, if it's helping them understand how to navigate through things, that's what parents are called to do. It's not always an easy road, but it's important.
I want to tell one story from our chat. As we're talking about building your castle on a hill, almost biblical, like on solid ground, build your house on the rock,
I love it.
Start with a good, strong foundation.
We're really going to go on this analogy because it's fantastic. Good.
But I think one story that has meant a lot to me was, and we've actually had this story multiple times from different people, but it's mostly daughters. I don't want to generalize, but your daughter had a friend who was suicidal, or she was struggling with this or that, or maybe she was being bullied. And this friend was constantly relying on your daughter for help, or to be that voice of encouragement, or to be that 24-hour care center for the friend. There are so many stories of when this phone was taken away from that daughter or that child, the stuff that they went through. I posted an article about it on Facebook a while back of a good example of this because we've seen it so many times. But the daughter or the kids almost go through the stages of grief when their phone is taken away. And then it was after a while, the parent is able to find out why they're so upset about the phone taking away. And it's, oh, my friend is suicidal. And she's been cutting and she's been self-harming and posting it. And I need to stay on social media. I need to always be watching for this so I can call her when it happens, or that when she calls me, I'm there to support her. Because if I don't answer the phone, she could take that next step. Number one, the conversation needs to be had that suicide and self-harm is someone's choice. And it is their choice to do that, whether or not your kid answers the phone for them.
Yeah.
Because your kid could answer the phone and hang up after a conversation. They could do it all over again, you know?
Right.
So protect your kids and let them know that it is not their fault if someone makes those kinds of decisions.
Yeah.
But number two, you know, taking a phone away keeps them from being in that boat. It keeps them from having to be the 24 care center for someone else. And it's a hard conversation. And if your kid is open enough to tell you what's going on, then maybe you can help that friend with resources or someone for them to talk to besides your son or daughter. But we see that in our chat a lot. We've had that story come up oftentimes of, well, I have to stay on FaceTime or I have to stay on social media because they might need me, or they call me when they have panic attacks or when they're just so stressed about homework. I have to be there for them.
Yeah.
And it's so important to let your kids know that no, you don't. You have to take care of yourself as well, because just like in airplanes, you have to put your own mask on before your kid's mask or else you can't help them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your kids helping their friends. If they're not emotionally and physically healthy, how are they going to help their friends be that way?
Yeah. And Caitlin, to me, that's just so ironic. Here we're talking about how to be responsible with phones and how to make sure, you know, so for instance, if your kid does I have to put my phone in a basket in my parents' room, that's about responsibility. And yet the other side of that is that your kid is starting to feel responsible for somebody else's life.
And they're 16.
Yeah. So being able to have these conversations and talking about how to just protect your kids even from being put in that position where they feel so responsible for somebody else's life, that is such a heavy thing. It means you have to get in front of it and have the responsibility conversations before it would even get to that point.
Yes.
Or knowing, okay, we've done this for too long. We can change it now. So yeah, that parent-child contract, it's such a big deal.
Setting those guidelines now help them learn to set those guidelines for themselves in the future.
Yeah.
The student I mentioned who grew up that way where he had to put his phone in the basket and it went to the parents' room, he's in college now. He still will turn off his phone so that he doesn't get text messages at night or he doesn't get phone calls or he doesn't get notifications from apps. He says, I turn it off because that's what I learned to do.
Yeah.
And even now in college, he's saying he is so much academically healthier, physically, mentally, emotionally healthier because he still does it.
Oh, I love that.
Sorry, I went on about that. Let's talk about the moat. What's the next line of defense here?
So we talked about the hill. That was the conversations. I love the idea of a moat, okay? Because a moat is your first true physical defense when it comes to the things that are going to come into your castle, right? And so to me, a moat, and if you can, again, visualize that beautiful castle, you know, you think about the moat, so many things can go in and then they just fall into the moat before they even get to the side of the castle, right? And so what that looks like to me is things like Wi-Fi settings and privacy routers and different devices that you can have where pornography or rated R things or however you want to have it set won't even get past your router. So it's things like the Disney Circle. It's things like Covenant Eyes. These are all just different products, different websites that you can go to that they can help you. And Caitlin's gonna do you guys a great solid and put a whole bunch of links to the end of this when she posts about this. When she posts this on the website, but. So it's things like the Disney Circle, Covenant Eyes, Open DNS, Clean Browsing. Those are just a few of those. But it literally will be a physical defense. It's probably like fiber optic defense, but I want you to picture it as that physical defense where that pornography, that's not even going to get into your home.
It can't even reach the device. It can't even enter the castle because it's already fallen before the wall.
I love it. And I don't know why. It just gives me so much pleasure thinking about all that yucky stuff just falling into the mountain, drowning.
And washing away in the water.
And washing away in the water, yes.
Yeah.
So the next one then, if you're going with this castle, the next one that would be another line of defense is the drawbridge. What I love about this drawbridge is that sometimes the drawbridge can be lowered and sometimes the drawbridge can be raised. And it is the decision of the king and queen of that castle what is going to be happening with that drawbridge, right? So if a drawbridge is the phone settings, the location services, the in-app purchases, anything about cellular data, it's the access to the camera. It's every single device has its own settings, and the king and the queen of that castle have decided what those settings should look like. In iPhones, that's what I'm the most familiar with. It's all under
it's just setting and then privacy settings.
Yes,
yeah,
I
you can go to
blanked
each
right
app
there.
and yeah.
But it's a really easy thing. If you are interested in doing the phone settings on your device, it's a really easy thing. Just get on YouTube and literally type in, how do I set phone settings on the Kindle Fire? How do I set phone settings on the, Apple Watch even.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, any of them.
Yeah.
And I like that because where the drawbridge is something, like I said, that can be lowered and raised and changed, it can be set on individual devices, and the parents and the king and the queen, they can decide, I think he's proven that we can lower this drawbridge a little bit.
And again, it's creating that responsibility. You're teaching them to be responsible. You're teaching them to build those boundaries. And I love it. Like, I love that you're setting the example in that way. And they might not like it at first. They might not get it. But as soon as you're like, okay, you know what? You've been doing great. Here's a consequence to that. And that is, we're going to lower this drawbridge, and you can now download apps without permission first. Or, you can now do in-app purchases because we trust you to spend that money wisely and not spend it all on games, but maybe on music or a video or a podcast that's good for you.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So then, you're on this hill, you have this moat, you have the drawbridge, and that last line of defense is your archers, your guards that are standing watch, right? And those are the parental controls, the time limits. And what those do, and what I love about this is, if you think about an archer, they have a target. They don't just randomly shoot little arrows wherever they want. They see something that they don't like coming towards them, and they shoot it down.
Yes.
And so that could be where the parents have seen, my child really struggles with an addiction to Fortnite. I'm just going to put that one out there.
Yep.
You know what? I'm going to put my little archer out there, and he's going to go put a big old time limit on Fortnite. And, we're going to just shoot that one down, and we're going to have that conversation and go through that. But I love the idea that the archers are individually set up to shoot down attacks from different areas, places, time limits, whatever it is. It's that parents, the king and the queen, deciding, we're not going to let that one attack us anymore.
Yes.
So that's such a valuable kind of just display of how you can slowly start to just protect your kids, but also help them to navigate to what it looks like to be an adult user of technology.
Yeah. So I want to do a brief overview of this with this analogy again.
Okay.
So you and your family are the castle. Step one is to be aware and have a conversation.
Yes.
Know that you are on a castle, on a hill with a moat and a drawbridge and archers. How do you utilize all these things around you? Know the importance of, hey, we got to protect this castle. It needs protection. There are enemies out there. You have to be aware of those enemies. And so you have that conversation with your kids. You create those phone or device contracts. You know ahead of the game how you want to fight this fight, because it is a fight.
And one of the ways that you do that is what you're doing right now. If you've stuck with us this far, you're listening to this podcast because you want to start this conversation.
You're already headed in a healthy direction.
Yeah, you're at the top of the castle. You've got your binoculars out, and you are on the lookout. And I love that.
Yes.
Thank you for being a part of that with us.
Yeah. Step two, the moat. These are the things outside of your castle that keep things from coming in. This is your Wi-Fi settings, your privacy routers. I'll include links to some of these awesome things that I had never heard of. And then there's the drawbridge, which is your actual device protection, settings on your phone or device, location services, app settings, cellular data, telling your device what is and is not allowed for the person using it. And then your archers, who are very specific on this app is addictive, or this app should not be on this phone, or this phone should not allow anyone to download any apps they want. It's that targeted protection, and safety. So those are our 4 big points in this analogy. The castle on the hill being aware, the moat, which is your Wi-Fi settings and routers, the drawbridge, which is your device settings, and the archers, which is the even more pinpointed security features you can do for your kid.
Yes.
Yep. So a lot of this was new for me. I'd not heard of some of this. And a lot of you guys are out there might not be very tech savvy. So what I'm going to do is the webpage that I post this episode on, episode 2 phones, beneath our main podcast video, I'm going to have resources for all of this. I'm going to have links for you guys to go delve into it a little bit more, some things that maybe you haven't heard of, other videos on how to look at your settings and set up screen time locks, the iPhone. Okay, let me just say, back in the day, when I played my Nintendo 64, Mario Kart or Zelda, I had 1 hour. We had to set a timer. That is now built in. You can say you get 1 hour and then it turns off on you.
Right.
Like you literally can not even have to worry about it. You just have to set it up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be sharing links to that kind of stuff. But we just want to thank all of you guys so much for listening in today. This is our first meaty episode 2 of Phones. But our organization, Remedy Live, we exist to chat, to listen, and to love. If you need someone to talk to immediately about a secret struggle that you might have, I know adults can struggle just as much as kids, or if you want to send your kid to us, we have a 24/7 live chat center. It's not on the phones, it's text to chat or computer online web chatting. So you can text the keyword remedy to the number 494949. Or you can go to remedylive.com and there's a banner at the top of the page that you just click to chat. You'll set up an account with us and we have someone there 24/7 to chat with you about something you might be struggling with if you need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, and we also really want to just keep this the conversation going from today. So please follow our Trends in Teens Facebook page and Instagram. That's kind of newer. We have an Instagram page as well, and it's just Trends in Teens.
Yep.
I think it's like trends underscore
teens.
Okay, that's the dot. Okay. And leave us your thoughts and your comments. And we want to have this dialogue with you as well. And most of all, if you like what you hear, we would love for you to partner with us at Remedy Live. Trends in Teens is kind of under the umbrella of Remedy Live. And it's our initiative to just help protect kids online, to create the healthy dialogues among families, and then to continue, honestly, to just wake parents up to what is going on in this world. I know I'm not the only concerned mom out there.
I certainly hope not.
No. Or concerned adult out there. You know, you've said you're not a parent, but this is a crisis and we need to work together on this.
Nieces, nephews, if you're a godparent, it all matters.
It
all does. And you always have a say in the kids' lives around you. You know, you really do. If you're spending time with a kid, you can say, hey, we're going to put our phones down right now. Or you can ask questions like, what are you doing on your phone?
Yeah.
You know, anyone can be a part of that. But most of all, I do want to say this podcast only exists because of supporters and people that want to be involved and want to give to Remedy Live. Some big people that sponsor us here are the Lutheran Foundation, Look Up Indiana, the greater community of Fort Wayne, and so many other businesses, as well as individuals who just want to be a part of this conversation, just want to help parents be well equipped to how, you know, to create those healthy relationships, as well as to create those future adults that know what to do in today's world and with today's technology. So we would love for you to join us if you want to support or be a part of this podcast. You can email us at info@remedylive.com. Same thing if you have questions or comments. We'd love to hear feedback from you too.
Yeah. And Caitlin, I'm just so thankful for you today. And I'm thankful for this conversation. We sure hope that you tune in with us for the next episode, episode 3, where we are going to start the big conversation of social media. We're really excited about this. It's probably going to be more than one episode, I think. But we really hope you join us. Thank you.